through the terminal in Glitchhikers. This first time here is apparently finite. I run.
Welcome back, and to those just joining us, good evening. The top story tonight, travel delays.
Huh.
We have similar reports coming in from all of our affiliate stations. Everything has come to a standstill, so settle in for what appears to be a very long night, wherever you are.
What?
Your news team will be hard at work obsessively covering the story from all angles. But if I may offer some advice, instant replays will not rescue you from an ongoing crisis. There's no use fostering regrets or fuming about what could have been. Whatever happens, we'll be here throughout the night to keep you company. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Hello, child. I was looking forward to this trip before all the flights got cancelled. I was going to go see nature. I'll just have to watch some nature docs instead. You're not the same person in the park. Good thing you have a TV for a hand. At the end of the day, we all have pretty ubiquitous access to media, don't we? That is true. I mean, the TV is actually more limited than the phones we carry every day. It's just larger. Larger and less capable, really. Like, at least with this screen, I'm never really bored no matter how long the wait. There's always something to watch, something to find or discover. Don't look at me like that. We're probably not so different, you know. I agree. I agree. A lot of people would agree with that. We all pick up, you know, in a moment of boredom, we pick up our phone and look at it. I happen to look at news articles. I browse random sites for information. Sometimes I'll do some test numbers for maybe Smite calculations if I happen to have some notes on hand. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And then I've got, you know, other things that I look up as well. Grim Dawn builds, you know, what the Grim Dawn community is talking about. And major things happening around the world. And maybe some events happening around the world that isn't receiving mainstream news coverage. I'll sometimes go out of my way to look those up in my free time as well. So I absolutely do the same thing. Now, this particular child watches nature documentaries, which is still informative. Other people go on TikTok, or they go on YouTube, for instance, like probably she would, or maybe they have a tablet and they're going on Netflix, right? Not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people think that phones are all bad. This is actually one of the things that I think phones are great for, is that we can learn and educate ourselves, assuming we're not going down some kind of weird rabbit hole, even in moments of boredom when we wouldn't normally be doing anything else. I mean, even before phones, the equivalent would be to carry a book with you, and if the book was fictional, then it would be no different than watching, say, a movie, right? On your tablet or phone. But if you brought, say, a textbook to read for fun, then that would be more informational, right? It's the same thing, functionally, alright? It's just that phones are more multi-varied in multitasking than books are, because I can still read a book on my phone. I have a Kindle app on my phone with books that I read. I'm currently reading 2 books right now. I've got Black Holes and Time Warps, and I've got Cultural Anthropology right now. I'm sorry, I'm also reading The Fundamentals of Criminal Law and Procedure. I just got that one. That's why I forgot about that. And I've recently finished The 48 Laws of Power. I've recently finished... there was another book that I can't remember the title of for some bizarre reason. I'm having a brain cramp, but, you know, I read books as well. And the only difference is that these books are electronic rather than physical books, which they would have been back when I was a child, right? It's really not different in that aspect. People are always complaining, oh, so-and-so is on their phone. So-and-so could have been on their book 30 years ago, right? It wouldn't have been any different. You still would have complained. It would have been the same complaint. It's just that it wasn't electronic. It was a book. Some people claim there's a difference. There really isn't in terms of what's going on. Again, fictional books would be the equivalent of watching TikTok, for instance, whereas educational books would be the same as, say, a nature documentary as there is in this case. Same difference, right? Your hand might not literally be a TV, but a screen's never far from it, eh? Of course I don't want your cookies website. We're all cyborgs, you know. Just because they're not built into you, they're a prosthesis, as common as glasses are, which is a fair point. They I can't speak today. They irrevocably change our lives. Just think of the behavioral patterns they create. It's become such a routine for so many of us. Wake up, check screen. Hear buzz, check screen. What time is it? Check screen. Kind of yes. I wake up, I check my screen to make sure that I have no emails that I need to read urgently. Other than that, and a quick check to see what the headlines are for the day, off I go. And that takes me all of a couple of minutes. Although on work days I don't have time to check the headlines. I have to do that usually on my lunch break. I don't have my phone set to buzz. I have that go to the watch so I can see in a second what it is. What time is it? Again, I have a smartwatch. But yeah, before I had the smartwatch, yes, what time is it? Check screen, absolutely. No one wears a watch anymore because they can see the time on their screen, unless the watch is another screen. That's fair. That's fair. I could say it lets us connect with people because this is another thing that I often praise the internet for, but there's an asterisk on that. I'm going to say nothing wrong with being informed because this is more often what I use the internet for, or what I use my phone for. Information is good, but it can be overwhelming, especially when you can't do anything about it. And how do you know the reporting is accurate? This is another fair point. There is such a thing as too much information. Not as in, oh, TMI. No, I mean, there's a lot of information out there, right? And again, some people have problems hearing about things that they can't directly do anything about, right? Reporting? No, the context here is specifically on news, obviously. There are wider implications here, for example, textbooks. And generally speaking, I assume news media have an angle. I'll talk about that in a future talk episode. But it's a fair point. How do I know the reporting is accurate? I don't. If I read a news article, I am immediately going to another news source that has the other political leaning, because nowadays all news sources have political leanings, unfortunately. There's no just news unless it's very local news. In which case, maybe it doesn't have a political leaning because the stakes just aren't high enough. But outside of that, yeah, pretty much every bigger news source is politically leaning. And that skews how and what they report on, which is deeply unfortunate. But it's just how news and politics have evolved in America. Well, in most countries, actually, not even just America. It's just more noticeable in America. But it's how news and politics have evolved in a lot of countries, unfortunately. Oh no. Can I afford another Go Finance Me? It's the repetitive need to check in, the validation of response. Not necessarily this. I disagree with the validation of response. I don't need a response. Okay? I don't. People on social media do, right? That's one of the reasons they use social media, but I'm usually checking in for information specifically. It is a repetitive need to check in. I want to feel informed, and that is probably a compulsion, as stated here. Right? Notification, the like, even just a FOMO, none of that really affects me. Don't really have that problem, because again, my intentions are informational, which has its own flaws. Do not misunderstand me. I'm not any better than people who are posting on social media. My sources are different. It's informational, but it's the same kind of need, okay? But it's so hard to disconnect. You don't want to miss out on the big news. Yep. Or what your friend's thinking. Kind of. Or what your favorite celeb is doing. Don't care about that. I get it. What would this hand be without the device? Let me see. It's just a new way of life. There are pros and cons, right? We've just been basically talking about, I could say there are benefits, which is true, but I've already talked about the benefits. Functionally, it's a new way of life with its ups and downs, right? There's no net loss or necessarily net gain. It's just things have changed. But is that dangerous? Culture mediated through these screens can become toxic so quickly. This is true. Division grows so quickly, even if there are also some benefits to it. That is true. And you can see that online, right? The whole culture wars thing. But then I would argue that it's equally as dangerous to have the reverse, right? Before phones and social media, you wouldn't necessarily know what was going on 2 streets over. If a violent murder happened, you wouldn't know until maybe the next night. If there was a police chase, you wouldn't know. Somebody knocks on your door. These were the old days when people would let other people, strangers, into their home because they were more trusting back then. You didn't know who you were letting into your home, right? But you'd be better informed as to who this potentially could be with a phone. Oh, police alert goes out. You can see it on your phone now, and hey, if somebody starts, knocking on your door, don't open it, right? Like I said, there are pros and cons. Dislike. People put it off as a generational thing. Young people these days. Never mind that pretty much everyone is just as connected. It's how the world is now. Yes, it's not really as generational. To some extent it is. It's partially generational, right? But not exclusively, okay? It's also not a new argument. People don't talk to each other anymore. They're just on their phones. Then you see a photograph of a train 70 years ago, and every single person is just silently reading a newspaper. Yes, it's the same thing. Like I said, you would see the same thing with newspapers, books, etc. Same thing. Same thing. It's just the what we have in our hands is more diverse in what it can do. That's the only change, right? Only change. It's faster than a newspaper. It can be more informative than or more entertaining than a book. That's the only real difference. I don't think this is economic disparity. I think this is a human thing. I disagree with the economic disparity argument, personally. Economic disparity does adjust what you've got in your hand to some extent. Richer people will have more expensive phones. To use the thing of 70 years ago here, 70 years ago, a rich person would maybe have a collector's edition book, maybe, which really isn't a big deal. But I don't see economic disparity as being the difference here, okay? I do say people are communicating on their phones, just not with the person next to them, which, again, has its own pros and cons. But I'm going to run with this. And sometimes with the person next to them, we're more connected than ever. Subscribed. For all that my elders like to point out my obsession with this thing, it's something I inherited. I can't exactly remove it either. But you probably inherited it too. It wasn't the younger generation that made these devices, that made the networks and culture we now rely on. This is a fair point. The previous generations built this, right? This was built in my lifetime. We didn't have phones like this when I was a child. We didn't even have even the iPod until I was like 15 or so. I don't remember specifically when the iPod came out because I didn't have one. I just got an iPhone when that became the thing, right? But that wasn't even until I didn't get a phone until I was 19. Okay, a cell phone, really. Okay, I had one of the flip phones when I was younger, but that was it. So, what is it you're looking for? Feeling informed. This is the primary thing I use my phone for, as I've discussed before. My number one use for a phone is to learn things. If I need to know something, I Google it right on my phone. My time on my phone is spent learning. I look up things. I run numbers for kicks, right? I run numbers not only to inform myself, but also for fun because I'm weird. But feeling informed is my go-to. Yet information is so often incomplete or poorly framed. So much missing context if you're not careful. Not that there's two sides or whatever, but even journalists are forced to hunt for clicks. This is true. This is what I'm going to talk about, like, maybe next week at some point. Journalists are looking for, to some extent, clicks. They will ignore really serious news in favor of more sensational news. This is, in fact, why celebrity news is so common, even in mainstream media, is because that's what people want to read. They want to feel superior to these people who are wealthier than them, basically, or more famous than them, or more successful than them. They want to hear about their struggles because that makes them feel superior, right? Or crime stuff. They want to feel like, well, even if my life is shit, at least I'm not going through this, right? Or at least I'm better than this criminal, right? That's why. And journalists pick up on that. And they go for the clicks. because that's how they get paid. The problem is we're tying our news specifically into how often it's seen. See, a lot of people talk about how newspapers were better than modern news, and this is true, because modern newspapers didn't necessarily have a ton of competition, and when they did have a competition, it wasn't in the information, it was more about getting the information first, scooping the other newspapers. And this only really happened in major cities like New York City, Boston, San Fran, etc., right? You know, in smaller towns or even in larger towns that weren't full cities, often there'd be one, possibly two newspapers that really weren't competing that much, right? And they didn't have to worry about this. You subscribed to the local newspaper, they provided you with the local news. And that was the end of that story, right? And again, in big cities, you subscribed to the newspaper that most consistently got you the fastest news. Right? That's what you did. And if they scooped, oh, look at that. You buy that newspaper. If one of them got the scoop before the others. And there was still plenty of room for celeb news, because every city had celebrities, and everyone was interested in what they were doing. And that's kind of how the sort of celebrity thing started, I think, is because way back when there were newspapers, celebrities were people that you could see on your local newspaper. And originally, these were just local celebrities, people who you could actually meet in real life, people who were actually doing things in your city. Then movies happened, and movies became more widespread, and then you started being able to see, you know, movie stars be in the news, because even if they weren't doing anything in your city, you'd seen their movies in your city, and so you were interested in what they were doing with their real lives. Of course, you had politicians occasionally doing shenanigans, as politicians do. But now we have global celebrities. Like, the Kardashians don't do anything, actually. And yet they're really famous because of whatever. Right? Mostly because one of them released one of them basically released a porn video. Functionally. That's what it functionally is. And they got famous that way. Socialites. But can I pet the dog? Unfortunately, you cannot. Sorry. Yeah, it's a lot of animal videos for me. You know, it doesn't help that sometimes the world's just a trash place. The escape helps. True, but a lot of news is more negative, which isn't really an escape from the trash place. Again, this is coming back to where you want to hear about other people suffering so you don't feel as bad, which is, again, a lot of people's motivation for negative news. That's why a lot of the news is negative. People don't want to hear about happy things. They want to hear about other people doing worse than them to feel better by comparison. Sweet, sweet validation. And it's fair point. It's a fair point, right? Can I just jump off of this? Yeah, apparently. Okay. Alright, who else is around here to talk to? Okay. Not sure what that's about, but... Oh my goodness. I'm not quite sure what the point of these are. Oh, I'm supposed to go up there, so I don't want to go up there quite yet. Okay. Oh, wait, there's a whole section up there. Let's go up there really quick. Oh, gadzooks. Oh, wait, there's a... Yeah. Oh! This place is a digital construct viewed through a screen, and yet it is a space that you are inhabiting just as much as any physical space. This space is digital, and yet it is still real. We are digital. Are we as real as you? In a way, I would have to say yes. In equivocation, that is fine I too am unsure. The digital is not tangible. It cannot be held. It can be copied, deleted. It follows different laws than the laws of physics, but you interact with it as if it is real. It has real effects on your lives, on the world. You may own a physical object, a computer perhaps. Can you own something that is digital? Most software is just licensed, which I agree with. That nonetheless implies that someone owns it. A program is a space you inhabit. Its user interface is the walls and furniture. You navigate the space, and its architecture influences you, your actions, your mood, as any building does. You are drawn in. When you are immersed, you lose your sense of physical presence. You are in the program, in the digital space. This is very true. This is a lot of the appeal of books, as mentioned in that response there, video games, movies, right? When you become immersed, you're there, right? And it can impact you, right? People cry at movies. People have favorite characters that they really relate to. People root for fictional characters all the time. People take sides of completely fictional conflicts, right? And it does affect people, and it is real in a way. I mean, just look at, say, for example, old conversations about, say, the Stormcloak versus the Empire conflict in Skyrim. Look at, you could even look at the way in which the Assassin's Guild is talked about in regards to Skyrim. You could talk about how people approach, say, the very deep discussion between Jedi and Sith as another example. It absolutely has an impact. Same as a book. Yes, you are drawn away to other places, other worlds perhaps. People demand ownership, control, but the tighter they hold on to it, the more it slips through, the more others rebel. If access is easy, people conform. If access becomes difficult, unwieldy, unfair, then people find other ways. When access was easy, there were fewer pirates. Now there are too many channels once more, and the pirates have returned to familiar waters. This is very true. Right? And I'll actually say that with time passing, as an example, there's also media being lost, and some people are performing what theoretically constitutes piracy in the name of preservation, right? Gaming is a great example of this. Games are being lost as we speak, right? It's the same as trying to preserve a rare book, right? Same deal. A great actual example of this is the Internet Archive, which is a great repository of just lost media in general, right? If needs are met, people are content. It seems such a simple solution. Even if access is easy, we shouldn't become docile, which... what's this one? I would say this. Awareness is important. Do not let it slip into paranoia. Which is my problem. I have a tendency to be mildly paranoid. I tend to assume... assume the worst, which I've deliberately... grown into that, but I must confess that sometimes it gets away from me. You can be so sure of what is real and what is not. You wake from a dream and know you are awake. You remember the real. You know it for what it is. But memory can be corrupted, like a bug introduced into the code. Memory is not to be trusted. It can be easily influenced. Your brain fills in gaps where information is short, and it is unreliable. This is very true. Alright, this is why there's memories are different, because the brain wants complete pictures, right? This is why you can read whole words even if some of the letters are missing, if you know the word. That's why. The brain fills it in automatically because it likes completeness. This is why when we read a story, we want a complete end. We don't like pieces missing. That's inherent to all people. We want that complete story, right? Same thing here. It's just with memories. So how do you know what is real and what is not? How can you judge this reality? We can only do our best. We can only do our best. Perhaps that is all the universe can ask. Our thoughts repeat. People demand ownership, control, but the tighter they hold onto it, the more it slips through, the more others rebel. If access is easy, people conform. If access becomes difficult, unwieldy, unfair, then people find other ways. Nintendo should really play this game. When access was easy, there were fewer pirates. Now there are too many channels once more, and the pirates have returned to familiar waters. If needs are met, people are we've looped back. Okay. The system needs fixing this time. We'll run with this. What should it be changed to? And how will that be accomplished? Can you own something that is digital? Can you own me? Digital is real. Your experience here is real. This space is real. Yes, but I can't own the hiker because the hiker is not something I created. I am in this space in the same way I would be in a real airport, except I obviously am not lifting off here because all the flights are canceled. But I'm experiencing life here just as I would experience life in an airport. But rather than being on my phone like I would be in real life, wouldn't I talk like how I talked to the girl with the TV, here I'm talking to philosophical entities functionally, which would be the same as being locked briefly in a airport terminal with no phone with a whole bunch of philosophy students or professional philosophers. It's the same idea. Inhabit this space. Experience it. Experience reality. I will, thanks. Okay, so we can't get there from here. That's fine. Can I? So it just shoots me in a straight line regardless. Huh. Okay. I don't have footsteps, I have music steps. That's interesting. Oop. I'm stuck. I have actually become stuck. Oh, there we go. Nope. Come on. I don't know how I broke Glitchhikers, of all things. Am I just stuck here? Yeah, I'm just stuck here. I might have to just exit out. This might be the world's shortest episode of Glitchhikers. Alright, yeah, we're just gonna... I guess this is a roughly half-hour episode now. Because I am completely stuck. I cannot seem to get out of here. And, yeah, we're just doomed. I have, broken Glitchhikers somehow. Send help. With that being said, I guess we'll come back here later on, but thank you very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, or requests, please leave them down in the comment section below. And thank you all very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.